All right, guys, welcome to the NHL DFS Preview. It's a similar thing that I would do as a recorded version. I'm just going to do it live today and also allow for people to ask some questions. The slate doesn't lock for another 6 hours. We actually have the day off in terms of midday hockey, but we do get 2 games tonight. And the 2 games are going to be the Washington Capitals and the New York Islanders, and then the Dallas Stars and the Calgary Flames. Now, just from a broader perspective, both games have an over-under of 5, which we know in playoffs has been lower scoring, but we have had some higher scoring affairs, especially when we put in Colorado in the mix. They've been a fun team to target. So we are going to start out on the Washington and the Islanders side. The Capitals and Islanders game is actually a pick'em, and on Bovada they have the Islanders as the slightest of favorite. I don't think that necessarily means that you're just automatically going to target them by any means, because I think the number one play on the night is obviously Alex Ovechkin. And what amazes me on this pricing of this slate is that after him at the winger position, at 8,500, the next most expensive winger is Johnny Gaudreau at 6,300. So it's just a way different slate than what we're used to seeing. But I do think that there is some ways to kind of hedge some of the chalk and find some ways to differentiate your lineups. But so on the Washington side, Alex Ovechkin will be a staple of all my lineups. 8,500, we can definitely make it work. Now, the big news for Washington will be Nicklas Backstrom. He is coming to the game as a game time decision. We've seen Kuznetsov skate on that first line with Ovechkin when Backstrom has been out. And in the last 2 games when he's done that, he had a goal, and then he had a goal and an assist, 19.5 DK and 12.8. At 5,700, if Backstrom is out, I would lock in Kuznetsov. I think he's a phenomenal correlation play. He has full power play correlation and would get full even strength correlation, assuming Backstrom is out. Now, if Backstrom is in, then we need to check the line rushes, because there's likely Backstrom would go back to skating with Ovechkin, which would make him a decent value at 5,100. The problem with someone like Backstrom is his floor is so low that if he does not get in a goal or assist, he will not reach value. Kuznetsov has a slightly higher floor. It's nothing great, but we don't have a ton of great options at the center position anyway. I think even past like Lars Eller at 4K, there's not really much else you can even consider at the center position. And Lars Eller has been playing an increased role with Backstrom out, so he's been on that second line. Barzal is 6,800, is the most expensive center on the slate. I think he could be worth it. He probably needs a goal to pay off 6,800, but again, we don't have anybody really in that that price range. Like, it's him and Johnny Gaudreau and then Ovechkin in terms of attackers. So I think you definitely make a case for Barzal here. And then, like Tyler Seguin is up there. But Barzal is viable. In this same game, we have Brock Nelson, 5,900. Has been kind of disappearing lately. Again, really goal assist dependent, which most centers are, besides the elite ones. So let's move to the winger position in the same game, the Islanders and Washington. Anders Lee is always usually a pass for me. He is way too goal dependent and way too expensive. His shots on goal have been up, but he is somebody that sits in front of the net. So I just don't like the floor as much when he's not taking a lot of shots from the wide sides of the rink. Then we have TJ Oshie, who would be continuing to skate on the second line of Lars Eller, assuming nothing changes. Maybe Backstrom comes back, Oshie bumps back up to the first line. Tom Wilson would move down, but TJ Oshie at 5,800, if he's still on the second line with Lars Eller, would be a pass for me. Tom Wilson, we know, loves to fight, and that gets him a lot of penalty minutes. I mean, look at the games: 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 11 minutes. He loves to take penalty minutes, but he is not a great DFS play. I would only do it if you're trying to fully correlate that first line, but he's not getting power play time, so it makes it really difficult to do that with that unit. In this same game, we have Josh Bailey on the Islanders side. Josh Bailey at 4,400 is a really nice value. Buvire, I don't know how to pronounce his name fully, but finally got off of his heater the last 3 games where he's only had 4.5, 3, and 9.3 DK, where before he was on like a crazy goal streak. But I do think he's cheap enough and, to consider here. In terms of value, there's not a lot of great value down below at the winger position. Now the defenseman, John Carlson at 6,700. I think there's a lot to like about playing somebody like him here, because he fully correlates with Ovechkin. He's got a super high floor. Which is crazy to me. The last couple games, he hasn't had a lot of shots on goal or blocked shots. But I do think for the price tag, it's really tough to get away from him, just with not a lot of other things to pay up for. Ryan Pulock is a decent cash play at 5,800. And then you're getting into a lot of just value defenders for the Islanders who block a lot of shots. So you got Andy Green, Pilic, Leddy, Mayfield, maybe Boyachuk plays. Nothing great that stands out there, but all could be viable. All right, let's move over to the Dallas-Calgary game. Tyler Seguin, 6,400 at the center position. Typically one of my favorite guys to target in DFS. He has been slowed down immensely in the playoffs, and I think part of that is just the slower pace, the lower scoring games. So he's definitely in play at 6,400, along with Sean Monahan at 5,400. Sean Monahan is somebody that has 20-point upside, but also has the floor of like one shot on goal. So I like using him if you are pairing him with Johnny Gaudreau. Johnny Gaudreau is a similar, low floor kind of player, but obviously has the goal and assist upside. So if you are taking the Calgary side of this game, then I would pair up Monahan and Gaudreau. And you could even say you use Kuznetsov, Monahan, and Gaudreau, and Carlson. I mean, I think you still have some decent amount of salary to work with here. Let me just plug that in. I know you can't see my screen, but even at this point, let's just plug in the most expensive goalie. And let's put in Talbot. So if you do put in Talbot and you have Carlson, Gaudreau, Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, and Monahan, you're left with about 3,300 left per player, which might be a little bit less than ideal with all those positions to fill. But as the player that I've kind of gone back to here, assuming he gets another, if Tkachuk is back, we will see probably Tobias Reeder not be on the second line anymore. And I can't even find him on here. I don't know where his 2,900. He did have an assist last game, and then it was taken away. But he did still play 15 minutes of ice time, which is great for 2,900. Someone like Blake Como, I don't know if I pronounced his last name right, but plays like 15 to 16 minutes a game, has a really nice floor too for 2,500. I think he's a viable punt with not a ton of upside. Where you have someone like Dylan Dubé, who 3,400 is also a nice value, has scored a couple goals in the playoffs, had 2 goals actually in the first game against Dallas. On the Dallas side, for the wingers, we have Radulov and Jamie Benn. Again, they have been reunited with Tyler Seguin on that top line, which typically leads to success. There was a line that you'd almost always target. Jamie Benn had 6 shots on goal and a goal last game. So I think for that second game, you just take a side. You're either correlating with Calgary or correlating with Dallas. I wouldn't really mix and match them a ton. The defenseman, Miro Heiskanen, has been playing a ton of ice time and really good. Same with John Klingberg. Klingberg finally got the price bump back up to where should be. He's been probably the hottest defender in the entire league in the last 3 or 4 games. 5,400. The last 4 games, 15.6, 29.8, 13.3, 14.3. So really tough to get away from someone like him. As we move down here, I think you could find some value maybe like in Lindell, TJ Brody, Olsiliak, if I pronounce his name right, has really been a phenomenal value at 3,200 and continues to play 22, 23 minutes of ice time every game. So 3,200, it's really tough to not get value for a defender there. Otherwise, I think that's kind of where the value ends at defender is Olsiliak. Anderson has been another guy who's been on the ice a ton for 3,400. Could definitely meet value. So I won't forget Mark Giordano. He is definitely in play as well. It's just harder for me to pay for him over probably Klingberg and Carlson, or Klingberg and Heiskanen, or Klingberg and Punting. So that's kind of where I'm at on the slate. Does anybody have any questions in the chat? I appreciate you listening. This will also be posted on our channel if you want to go back and listen. Also, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are not already subscribing to our channel. It helps us out a ton. We are able to continue to put this free content out when we get the viewership and those types of things. So it just helps out a ton. And it's something really simple on your end if you can just do that. Any other questions? Any questions for me before I sign off here? All right, good luck tonight. If you are in our Discord, be on the lookout for our core plays, and I will catch you there.